Hi everybody, how you doing this afternoon? My name is Darcy. I run a web development firm here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada called Pixel Factory. You can check us out online at pixelfactory.ca. Today I just wanted to chat with you about UX design. I'm working on an e-commerce theme right now, and I noticed that in the account area, there's a couple of cards with where you'd put your name and your address. And I noticed as I was doing it that this might make a really good real world example of UX design. As I was doing it, I kind of saw that, it might give you a better understanding of kind of like what it is you're looking at when you're doing UX design. We'll talk about user scenarios and just getting user feedback to try and help improve something really simple like an address card in an e-commerce site. So check it out. So you can see here the theme that I'm working on. It's an e-commerce theme, and this is pretty typical of an e-commerce theme. You're going to have an account area where you're going to have your name, your address, and it's going to be the place where the company can, you know, and you can communicate about what's your physical address. So when they're sending in a package your way, this is how they know. So right now, I've got this thing where I've got two cards, and this is sort of the end result of a lot of revisions and some feedback. This could go a lot further, but before I even go deeper into this, I'm just going to show you some of the first couple versions of this. And you can see here I have two cards. This is the first version of it, version A, and this is actually kind of like borrowed from another e-commerce site that I was looking for inspiration from. It's a site I go to quite a bit and actually buy a lot of stuff from, but I noticed that when I was doing it that surprisingly they didn't have a lot of thought that had gone into the UX design of this seemingly simple part of the e-commerce site, and it made me think, man, maybe this would be a really good video to start to explore and talk about UX design, especially for people who've never really understood kind of like what is UX design and what's it all about. So anyways, I thought, yeah, here we go. We got with this these two cards, and you can see there's really not a lot of difference between the two of them. It says John Smith. One has a little bit of a different address. This just says change. It says change. There's a little X in the top right hand corner. They both have these kind of areas where it says default, and another one says make default. There's an add new button. It's not totally clear about what's going to happen when you do some of the things, for instance, add new. If I click on this button, what happens when you click the add new button? Does that just mean that a new card just pops up into this space exactly, or where does it pop up? If I were to just click this button and a new card just popped up, would it have this information in here, or would it have some kind of placeholder text? Would it pop up here? Would it pop up to the right? What would happen to this button after I added new? If it popped up underneath this thing, would it send this add new button? These are the kinds of questions that you start to think about when you're doing UX design. You're thinking about the user scenarios. Those kind of scenarios that play out. So they need to be answered, and in my attempt to try to discuss some of these things, I thought what I'll do is I'll create a couple of versions of it. Start with this initial version, and then do a little bit of a different version where I start to think about okay, so what happens? What can I do to improve these cards? So one of the things I thought of doing is just changing this rather ambiguous kind of text change. If you're going to click on that, what does that mean, change? I think what they were trying to get at was they wanted you to edit the address. So I changed the terminology so it's a little bit more clear about like what happens when you click on this. So it's a little less ambiguous about what happens when you click on this, which makes it, makes for a better user experience. I also changed the default text so that actually is a different color than this make default text to try and, I guess maybe contrast the two or make them seem visually a little bit different. Those are just a couple of really simple things that I started to do, and I thought, well, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually talk to some people to try and get some real user feedback. And this is something that like user experience designers like to do a lot of, is collecting feedback on their design so that they can get a better understanding of like the direction that they're heading in. Maybe they're missing out on something that a user without any kind of like prior knowledge to what's going on here can kind of like ask a question of that maybe a designer wouldn't see. And so anyways, I thought this is a good time to maybe get some feedback. So I did two versions, A and B, and went to the Slack channel, the Edmonton Society Slack channel, and asked the people to tell me what do they think, which is better, A or B, give me some feedback. So Andy says B. Deepak says, I like B since the make default button stands out. Okay. However, it might not be clear to the user that it's still a button due to the style. So yeah, right now this definitely looks like it's just a link. Like if I'm going to click on this, it looks like it's just going to send me to another part of the website or a different website altogether. It's a link. It doesn't really necessarily look like a button. Some more feedback. Am I right that default is not clickable? So default, it looks like it's not clickable. If yes, then B. I would also make the card border more black for the default address to stress more that it's selected as default. So yeah, you can see here, you can't really necessarily just quickly visually tell that like this is the default one. You really have to kind of hunt for it and search for it. It's not totally obvious. We're going to make that a little bit more obvious. That's what he's saying. B, the edit address is much more understandable than change. So terminology can help give an idea of what's going to happen when the user clicks on that. Question, do you also select the address using the card? So if so, a trash can may make more sense than an X for delete. So he's saying like, yeah, this would be a little bit more obvious if this was an X and if it was a trash can. Also really good advice. And also saying that like, if I'm selecting this, am I selecting this whole thing as a button? How do I select this to make this default? Because it's not really obvious here either. Or if I push this button, does it automatically make this default? How do I know it's going to be default? Anyways, so all great feedback. So you can here you can see the end result of some of the feedback. And what I've done is I've just tried to make this a little bit more obvious. So I took the X out of their corners and put it in a trash can. So now it looks a lot more obvious, like what's going to happen when I click on this. It's going to probably send this to the trash. No questions about that. There's a lot more contrast between the two cards. So here, this is highlighted in this pink color that goes with the brand. And there's a lot more contrast. Whereas this one, less contrast. It's more subdued, and you can really tell that there's a difference between these two. One has been selected and one hasn't been selected. Another thing that helps with that is this radio button. So I've actually added a radio button here. So right now it's selected as default, and now if I click on this radio button, boom, it becomes default. And you can see here's a change of color. This is just some really simple low level functionality that I've created to help make it seem really more obvious about like what happens when you select your cards here. And yeah, that's just all from like a few minutes of getting some user feedback, which is really helpful in improving the user experience of something really simple as like an address card on an e-commerce site. There's still a lot further we go here. For instance, like what happens when you click on this add new button. Right now nothing happens on there, but like in a user scenario, you might be asking yourself like, okay, so if I click on the add new button, does a modal pop up saying like put in this information, and then it automatically puts in the information after you click OK, or does it just automatically add a new card? And if so, where does that card go? Does it go under here? What happens to this add new button when you do that? There's all kinds of like things you have to think about when you're like creating an interactive website like this. That I guess like to people who've never really done UX design before, and maybe it's not really obvious like how much work goes into like something like this. Something really simple is like even just like creating an address card. So anyways, I thought this might be a good example of UX design and what it's all about. So anyways, hope that helps. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. Again, our website is pixelfactory.ca. We're in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We do a web design and development. So yeah, if you want to hit us up anytime and chat more about UX design, that's how you can get a hold of us. And until then, yeah, have a good day. See you guys.